Board members, as I call your name, please state reply with present. Treasurer Luna,
Present.
Trustee Relaford is absent. Trustee King,
Present.
President Clark is absent. Assistant Secretary Treasurer McIntyre,
Present.
Secretary Perkins,
Present.
myself, Vice President Mike Neal, present. We have a session for comment from public. Seeing that we have no one from public, we'll move to our next agenda. I would like to introduce to the Flint Board of Education, Mr. WRIGHT from Neola, and ask him to tell us about Neola versus FBO, as well as what he does.
Okay, I want to give you a little bit of an introduction to myself. I moved into the district, or into the county in 1974, accepted my first teaching position at Montrose. Spent 30 years as a teacher, administrator, as a building principal, as a finance director, as athletic director, as a human resource person, and assistant superintendent, and so forth. In 2003, I took my first superintendency job in Birch Run. Held that job for 7 years, but I still lived in Genesee County, and I always had the desire to come back to Genesee County. Lived down at that point. I had moved to Linden because my wife was a physician and she had to be close to Genesis. Lake Fenton opened up. I ended up applying for the job, was fortunate to get the job at Lake Fenton, was a superintendent for 7 years when I retired in 2017. At that point, I had planned on taking over Neola and doing some work with them, as the individual had recruited me for several years to take over that. Began my piece with Neola. 6 months later, I got a call from Montrose that their superintendent had just resigned. So I went back to Montrose to be a superintendent again and continued to do Neola. Did that for almost a year, a little less than a year. And they wanted me to stay on, but I said, no, it's time for me to retire. So I retired again, continued doing Neola. When Goodrich called, they had just did a separation agreement with their superintendent. So in 2019, I went back in as the superintendent of Goodrich, supposedly for a year. Well, I just retired from Goodrich on January 31st of 2023. So I've been out for about 3 or 4 months now as the superintendent, and I'm doing just Neola work right now. Little bit about Neola. So Neola has been a company that's been around that does exclusively work with school board policy. They do policy in 7 states: Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio. I'm going to take that back. It's 6 states: West Virginia and Florida. They have attorneys in every one of those states that goes through and writes their policy. Policy changes are made twice a year and sent out to boards, and we review them with different school boards. Board policy is a lot of times changed because laws change. There's new laws drafted in Lansing, new laws drafted in Washington, D.C., federal piece, that causes policy to change. There also may be pieces from clients within the districts that if we have several people that want to have a policy written, they'll look forward to it. An example of one I'm going to look forward to that I'm thinking that you're going to see in the next couple of years is something on AI, artificial intelligence. It's all of a sudden becoming something huge. I've already had people question me, do we have a policy on it? We don't yet. It's something new, but I expect that there's going to be something written on that in the near future on use of it and things of that nature. So in Michigan, we teamed up with MASB. MASB used to have a policy, do policy themselves. In 2010, they decided they weren't going to do policy anymore, but they wanted to join Neola. So we work with MASB, And our attorney, we have an attorney at Varnum, which is located, their offices are located in Grand Rapids. And then we work with Brad Banasic, who is the attorney for Neola, for MASB. And we work together to make policy. Twice a year we meet as a group and review what's going to come out. Each September we do a release, and then each February we do a release. So we meet as a group in December and then we meet in July as we're preparing the stuff for the next release. That's kind of how everything goes. From my understanding, and I was recruited by Neola, by Wayne Peters, who did the drafting of Neola policy for Flint schools. You guys adopted policy, I'm going to say somewhere around 2015. From my understanding, Mott Foundation paid for policy to be drafted and for the policy and what we call administrative guidelines to be developed for Flint community schools. Policy is what the board uses to govern schools. Administrative guidelines are what the administrators put together with the help of Neola to help make sure that those policies are followed. Like I said, twice a year you have policy review updates. We haven't been reviewing the updates with Flint. There's been some issues with turnover and things of like that. So you're behind on getting your policy updated. And that's one of the things that we need to start doing right now, is to start catching up those policy updates. And I live in Genesee County, retired, so I can come whenever the board has a desire to have a meeting, to have a workshop, and we can go over and catch up some things. And I will work with Mrs. Beard to get everything caught as you adopt it, to get it set, put online for you, and get everything taken care of, so that we can have a solid policy that's up to date and totally legal with the state of Michigan and with Washington, D.C., with the federal piece. In our policy book, there are 10 sections. The first section is 0 something, maybe 100. That's what we call bylaws. Those bylaws govern the board. Governs your use, it governs how you react to meetings, committees, things of that nature. Anyone that starts with 1000s, and you'll see it up there, deals with administrators. It deals with the guidelines or the policy that we have to do to administrate for administrators. The 2000s are program. 3000s is our professional staff, that's your teachers, social workers, guidance counselors, things that they take a professional degree. 4000 is your support staff. That'll be your bus drivers, and I know you contract your bus drivers out, as I believe, as a third party. You got custodians, I'm not sure if you contract them or not, paraprofessionals, food service, secretaries, things of that nature. That's your 4000s. Students is your 5000s. Things we look at, how we deal with student discipline, what students can do and can't do, and so forth. The 6000s deals with finance. So that's where your finance directors are strongly involved in looking at how you can do your expenditures and things of that nature. Board sets the policy up, and then they have to follow through with that piece. The 7000s is our property, and 8000s has to do with operations, and 9000s community relations. Those are the sections that are set up, so that everyone's, like I said, twice a year, and sometimes we even have special updates in the middle that with a policy that comes out that we must get instituted right away, that they're going to deal with the change that we have to have because of legal. Give you an example of one I know that's coming up is Title IX. Title IX was developed in 1976, I believe, the first one. 2020, they did a major overhaul of Title IX. They're doing another overhaul with Title IX. We were expecting the update to come out hopefully in May of this year. It looks like it's now going to come out maybe in October. So when we get to that one, we need to make sure we get that one online so that if you have any Title IX issues, things, it's adopted and put into your books.
Hold on, excuse me. We're gonna let him finish, and then we're gonna ask questions.
Yeah, just, and as we go through, once we get into policy, I would prefer that you would, while we're on a specific policy, that you would interrupt me and go over any rules or anything in that policy that you want me to go further on. I would love to have it at that point instead of waiting till we get to the next policy. I don't have a lot of more things here. Let me see what else I've got here. Like I think I said that Mott paid for your policies, paid for your administrative guidelines, so your stuff has all been paid for. I'm here because we've missed the updates. Normally when we do updates, I come in and review the update stuff. That is all part of that. So there's no cost at this point for me being here today, for me being here for the next probably couple of times. I'm here because we need to get caught up to date, and it's all been paid for in the past. So it's not a cost factor for you. Hopefully we can get everything done in 3 to 4, maybe 5 meetings. It's going to take, we're not going to get all this policy caught up in a meeting or two. It's going to take a while. A lot of times, each one of these updates, when I meet with schools, it may be there 2 hours. So you've missed 12 to 14 updates. So we don't have that much time in one to get you caught up. It's just going to take some time.
Mr. Wright, when was the last time you were in Flint schools?
I've never been in Flint schools. I was assigned the account for Flint in 2017. I contacted Monica Wood. I sat down with her for a period and said, hey, can we do something with doing something with a policy, getting the things. She was trying to get meetings together. It never happened. We need to draft the administrative guidelines. That's going to take about 25 hours probably, and I need to work with administrators on that. Mm-hmm. I started having a conversation with one of your previous superintendents, and there was a turnover, and it just kind of fell through. We're at a point right now that I just love to get caught up as quickly as I could. It's a whole lot easier for me to come in twice a year with the annual piece and work with you and get you caught up to date each year.
Okay. So, first of all, great job, board. You're doing something that hasn't been done in a very long time. So that.
How long have you been in since what year?
Well, you haven't ever been in Flint school.
No, I haven't. And I think you adopted policy in somewhere around 2015 by Mr. Wayne Peters, Dr. Wayne Peters.
Okay.
Dr. Peters passed away, by the way, in March of 2020 or 21. So I can't go, I don't have my reference points to go back to him right now.
So one of the things that I would just like the board to have some communication about, and you can determine how you want to go, is the fact that we're following 2 Bibles, right? We're following, I'm just using that as a term, FBOE bylaws and policy, and we're following Neola bylaws and policy. I think that at some point the board has to make a decision on being able to move forward with one of those policies. With your work with Neola and bringing us to the place where we need to be, updating these policies seems to be counterproductive if we're going to be following two sets, as we're currently doing right now. If we're updating Neola, it seems as though we need to make a decision, or the board would need to make a decision on how we move forward from here. And it would be better for the administration to follow one policy and one set of bylaws. Well, the bylaws is for the board, but we would be able to follow those bylaws if we know which one we're going to be following. So I just wanted to put that out there to the Board of Education.
Dr.
Go ahead, Trustee.
Vice President McNeil, since you've been on the board, is this the first time we've actually even discussed this?
True, we've been trying to get to this point because we need to follow the law, and FBOE does not follow the law. And so it's been a struggle trying to get to this point where when new board members come, when I'm gone on or we gone, you guys are setting the footstep. When they come in, they have something to follow the law. Neola is the law. Our previous executive, we was trying to get to that point, but chaos didn't let us get to that point. And we're the only district that's not following the law because someone decided years ago, FBOE circumvents Neola. That's what it was designed to do from another board attorney. So I'm saying that this is great for us. It's been sitting there. No matter what we do, I don't care if we do use FBOE, if it's violate the law, you still gonna end up in court. I don't care if it says you can remove a person without cause. It's not the law. So we still would be violating the law. So I suggested that, and the state have suggested that we get these policies together. And so that's why we brought him here. But this is the first time that this has ever been happening since, what do you say, 2015? I think the board got together, something like that.
You got two.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Ms. McIntyre was
Yeah,
late.
and of course, because being the historical structuralist that I am, like the background for me, that as I understand it and as I've done my research, is that the issue was the funding source with Mott Community College and the idea of having autonomy from having like influence on having a nonprofit or a foundation, having influence on the bylaws of the board. And so, not that that's bad or it's good, but there was an issue about Flint School District is unique and different from other school districts. And so the idea was having Neola policies and then having the addition of board policies to kind of, you know, offset anything that might be an unusual or anomalous circumstance. And there was like I guess like a tension that the idea wasn't to overcome like Neola's policies, but just in case there was, you know, a unique situation. However, before Dr. McNeil and I got on, there was that lame duck period after we'd gotten elected. So October to January, and you had two board members who changed a bunch of bylaws like within those couple of months. So it went from like 71 pages to like 171 pages. And we were trying to do a comparison about, you know, what the old bylaws were with what the new bylaws were. And then the process just got sidelined because there was, you know, contention on the board, and the idea was we can't decide on either Neola or Flint Board of Education bylaws, and there was like a, you know, like a tuffle over that. And so I think what this board is tasked with doing is just scrapping everything, you know, forgetting about all the disturbances in the past, but we need to move forward with the 2015 version, look at Neola, and with all due respect, Superintendent, I hear what you're saying and I agree, but I do also want us to consider that issue about, is our district unique and do we need an additional thing? Now, in general, that has not worked because, as Dr. Joyce has said, we have things that are not following the law and we have an abuse of these separate bylaws, but I'm confident that this board is mature enough and professional enough to handle it so that we can come to a point where we can say, hey, we have Neola policies, we don't need additional policies. I'm confident, but it's gonna require a lot of work from all of us and all of us coming. Does that make sense?
Yep,
Thank
yep,
you.
and I think Mr. Wright is going to be able to help us understand. You
Yeah.
called it something yesterday about optional language.
Yeah,
Within the policy, we have the law, and that law is something that every board has to.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
By the way, every district in Genesee County except one has Neola policy. We have about 470 districts in the state with Neola.
I just wanted to give them some
Nope, I understand.
historical context.
That's great.
Yeah.
And within the policies, you'll see little parentheses in some cases. Those are optional languages. You can accept that optional language, or you can reject that optional language. And in the updates, optional language is appearing. Now, for the most part, you're not going to see a lot of it in some of it because you've already eliminated those optional pieces, chosen the ones that you wanted that best fits Flint.
Okay, thank you.
I did have
Trustee-
one other- but I did have one
excuse
other
me,
question. I know, but I had-
Excuse me one second. I guess we didn't explain how we was gonna do this. We got plenty of time to kind of get to the part as you dig into policy. Basically, what this was to ask him anything regarding his introduction. But go ahead, Laura.
I just had one question. So you said that there's 6 states
Yes.
that, and you talked about AI and some other stuff that needs to be updated. Each state is different, right?
Yes.
Because, okay, so
They have
I
a
just-
different law firm
when
in
you
each
said
state.
Florida, and I was like, uh-oh, Title IX. So Michigan, we don't even have to, we're just dealing with Michigan and we're gonna be.
We're just dealing with
Michigan's-
Michigan. Now, with Title IX, that'll probably be, all 6 will be the same because that's federal.
Yeah, okay.
Now, with a lot of the other policies, they're state policies. So Florida has their attorneys, West Virginia has their attorneys, and so on and so on.
Thank you, thank you.
Trustee Perkins.
I was just going to say that being a newbie on the board, I don't want to be confused with FBOE versus Neola. I personally don't. I want to know the right policies. I want to be governed by the law. That's what I really want. So if I have my say, it will be the Neola law and the policies and do away with the other one. That's where I'm at. Because we're 5 of us are new. And we don't need to be confused and we don't need to be in the middle of mess from before previous boards, whatever. I just want to know where it is we need to be so we can really move this district forward. That's where I'm at.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. We gotta move forward. In order for us to move forward with this policy and to ensure we are following the law, I would like to seek a motion and a second to suspend FBOE policy and bylaws. Ms.
I make a motion that we suspend the FBOE policies and bylaws and go with Neola.
Is there a second? It's been motioned by trustee Claudia Perkins, second by Laura McIntyre. It has been properly moved and second. Are there any corrections?
Discussion.
It should be discussion, not correction. Are there any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Sure.
we haven't even got through Neola. Are we, you want to suspend FBOE policies and go with Neola right now without us going through what he has to say?
In order for him to get to, because we uses Neola, as you look at your policy, it's gonna be pretty much the same thing. What we need to do so we can get forward and just focus, we're just suspending it, focus on the Neola policy. And Mr. Wright can explain why we're
Yeah,
doing that.
I'm just saying, I don't feel comfortable voting on something
Okay.
I haven't even heard. I know what Neola is, I understand that, right? But I want you to go in depth with you, I want to give you the opportunity to go through that. Then I'd be able to make my decision on which one. Most likely I'd be going with Neola, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
that's just a,
And I would ask a question, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What exactly are we doing today that's going to, maybe it would help Trustee King. Are we going through everyone?
Here's what we're going to do. Here's my plan for today. You adopted Neola policy back in 2015. That time, that was all of the current laws and everything that was out there. You had reviewed everything that dealt with Flint, the board had, when I say they. The board had reviewed everything with Flint. Since then, there's been a lot of changes in law. So what I was going to do, go back to about 2018, 17, and start looking at the changes, that we've had, and review those changes that we had, and then consider this a first reading, because it takes 2 readings, and get those things going. There's no way we're going to be able to go through everything that we've changed from 2017 to present. It'll take 2, 3, 4 meetings to do that. So I was going to go through, I have sat down and reviewed all the different changes, and I was going to talk to you about the changes that are there. And there are some of those changes that are optionals, and then you need to determine whether you want those optional changes. There's also some policies that we've now added that you may want to take in, add to your policies. And within those policies that we're looking to add, if you want to add them, there are some options and what best fits Flint.
Trustee Lona?
Ms. Perkins, were you gonna go to, all right? Am I
She's
fine to-
eating right now, go ahead.
Okay. I'm in favor of the change. I just was more curious about how if we're gonna transition into it, or how would it affect the current, like, officer structure and committee structure, but I think it's a good first step. Those are my questions.
Yeah,
Okay,
I can see
for
that.
me, since I've been on this board, I use Neola. I have always used Neola because the union use it. I look at your board, I look at the board policy, and I go back to what the law says. And I'm agreeing with what you said. Somewhere we have to balance. It's not saying that you won't have anything to work with when we said suspend it, because you have Neola policy. What you could do, which I have done, is that, because we have 2, one doesn't supersede the other, but the law always supersedes what we put together. So when I'm making my decision, I use this. And that is to eliminate us from having these litigation. Because you end up in situation where we got litigation, and it is because of something in these policy. Neola is the law. The judge doesn't care what you write. We violate the law, they looking at Neola. So that is what this is counter to do. What I say, what we can, I'm thinking about doing, looking at doing, is suspend FBO so Mr. Wright can get us up to date. If we have questions, we still have these policies and bylaws in place. If you look at your bylaws, I don't know if you guys ever looked at Neola, they have the bylaws. Our bylaws come from that, So that is why for him to move forward. Then if we get to making these policy, you can adjust these policies as we see need, but we need to get to the law of policy making and what policy are. I hope I answered your question.
Oh, you did, thank you.
Because UTF, that's what they use, the contract, everything is based on this.
So,
Trustee,
So that's really what sold me on the Neola, just
in
the general
discussion anyway.
conversation. If FBOE is violating the law, I don't want any part of it. That was real simple for me.
yeah, some of it does, some of it interferes.
so-
Trustee,
Question.
Terry. Trustee King.
Question. So for example, in this, one second, I just found it. This is why, I'm kind of hesitant at the moment, because I want us to go through this and make any corrections that we need to have first that pertains to us, because, for example, it says in here, where'd it go? Basically, it says in here, the district is comprised of 9 board members when there's 7 here. I just want to make sure I'm looking at,
We saw, that is why Mr. Wright is here. We
Right,
want to
I wasn't-
discuss
I
that
wasn't
because,
finished. I wasn't-
I'm just wondering just why you're looking.
I get you,
Okay.
I found it. Policy PO 0141. The Board
Yes.
of Education shall consist of 9 members. Like, I want us to be able to go through this before we adopt
The-
something, so we
with-
understand what we're adopting. I mean, I understand the urgency. Trust me, believe me, I understand the urgency, but that right there, I don't know how to feel about that, because I didn't even have a chance to go over what the different changes would be first, but it's the pleasure of the board.
Let me do some
Yes,
answering
'cause
on
he's
it.
looking at
You have some
Neola.
specific things here
Yes.
to Flint that is mainly different from most districts in the state. You had a 9-member board back in the day. Most districts throughout the state had a 7-member board. So I'm assuming there was an option back in the day where you chose the 9 members. Now we need to go back, and you won't see that in an update. We're gonna have to go through and catch that, to change that 9 to 7, and then change the quorum. Mrs. Beard pointed that out yesterday, that the quorum is 4, not 5, when you have a 7-member board.
So could we, my thing is, right, if we adopt this now, we gotta follow exactly what it says. We haven't made any changes.
We can make those changes as we go through. If we catch a certain policy, like the one you just pointed out, 016, was it 1.2 or something, whatever it
4.1,
was,
yeah,
where it talks about quorum and it talks about board, we can change those numbers from 9 to 7. We
Right
need to
now?
do that.
Today?
We can do that. We can do that today, make the change, and then you have to have 2 readings, and then you vote on it, we send that in, and it becomes
So
policy.
two readings is gonna take about 2 meetings.
Yep. Well, we're doing 1 reading right now. We're
Okay.
going to do a reading today.
With including the changes that we make, right?
Any change that we review today is what we can change in the policy. And then if you catch some at a later date, we can then
Yeah.
do a reading at that point.
My concern is if we, let's say Neola says one thing, but we know it says something different, and, you know, board members take that, and we're like, okay, we're going by this, but wait, that's not what we've been doing. Like, that's one of my concerns is, if I don't see exactly what the bylaw is explaining to me to do, and later on we say, well, the bylaw says this, right, but we haven't been through that, well, let's change it, now we have to take 2 steps to it, but we still have to follow something that's where my concern.
You can do an immediate piece, but you can do an immediate piece on a change in a policy, but then you still have to do 2 readings to get to get it changed forever.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Okay. And we already have Neola. We're not adopting Neola. We already have it. We already follow it. We have certain, it's following Neola. What we're saying that, in this white book that he has right there, is all the updates to Neola. What we're requesting that we suspend FBOE and follow the law and update Neola. We have Neola. We are paying all this money for Neola, and the district is using Neola. So that is why I'm saying it's not like we are not gonna have any policy. We have Neola. It's just in that white binder, as we go through, we're gonna be updating, because this hadn't been updated in 2015, even Neola.
Point of information. Are we suspending for a certain time or frame, or just we getting rid of it?
Well, what's gonna happen, eventually, we're gonna suspend FBOE, hopefully just get rid of it, because then we have a updated Neola version, like all the other districts, following the law. And everything that you probably have, because FBOE does not address what they keep using this excuse, Flint is so unique. There's nothing in FBOE that distinguishes what Flint is so unique in it. It doesn't have the water crisis, doesn't have the pandemic, doesn't have any of these updated issues. What Mr. Wright is going to do is bring, and he has all the updates we need here. Ms. Beer turned around and he showed her how to use the software and update the system. And that's why the motion was that we don't want you going back and forth. We're suspending FBOE, my understanding, so we can get to the Neola and just get updated. Because it won't be able to compare FBOE with Neola, because FBOE does not line up with the law. Neola does. And we need FBOE suspended. It's not saying that you won't have any policy. You can always look at Neola.
Point of
And then you
information.
can always call Brad or Mr. Wright if we have questions.
Point of information, so what's the duration of the suspension?
We have not set a duration of the suspension until, we are doing this right here.
Okay.
And then just to get through, so Mr. Wright can come through. He's been sitting on banks of money that they already spending, whether we use, the law is the law. He's been sitting on this for the longest, and he has not been able to get to the board to get us updated with the law. And so that's why one of the state requirements is that we get to the law policy.
But I would say that I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Changes are going to happen twice a year. So we are going to come back together twice a year to have conversations about optional language, which I think that the optional language gives the board the opportunity to say, hey, we probably need to add this to our policy because this is what we are used to, or this is what we have been doing that's been working. Does that?
That's correct. And as we're moving forward, you say, all of a sudden you see a policy and you say, this isn't what we're doing here. This doesn't match up with it. We can take that policy, even if it isn't in our update, and update it at that point to match what you are doing.
Is there any more discussion?
Yeah,
Go ahead, trustee.
I would just say that hopefully we can make some of those changes today because, for
Yeah,
example, I
they
think
can.
Neola calls for a combined secretary and treasurer position, so I'm not sure
Yeah.
how that would work, but
And that's something, well, we can keep that that
Yeah,
way. See,
so-
that's something he'll discuss as we go, and we can just highlight that, or he probably already didn't highlight it, and we
Right.
can have those discussions.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, we probably won't get all of those pieces done today, you know, because I don't even have that one. I didn't even look at that to see that you have secretary treasurer as one position versus two. That's something if you
Well,
know
we have
about.
the secretary, then we have this, because they brought that to our attention before, and we have a person that does the assistant secretary and assistant treasurer, and the state thought that was kind of unusual, but you had discussed that as well.
If you see some policies in there that you
Highlight
disagree
them.
with, we
Yeah.
can talk about them. We'll just need to make sure that we're not violating law as we go through it. And I pretty much know this stuff. You know, if I have a question, I also have conversations with Brad Benasek too, on a regular basis.
And I want to say this, I remember yesterday you said the books that we have now have to be updated as well, because they're behind, these books are a little behind as well, right?
Say that again?
Are these, the binders we have now, they still need to be updated as
Yes.
well?
What
So-
you have now is probably what was adopted in 2015.
So he's going to show you the update.
So
Yeah,
we have to
He's going to
start
show you
moving
the
forward.
updates as we go.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you.
So,
Okay.
th- just to really kind of keep us moving after, if the board decides to do this, is it possible to have a healthy amendment to state that officer positions remain the same? Meaning, I'm not talking about the person in it, but the structure.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about trying to get to, a Neola says secretary treasurer, instead of having to make that change as soon as you adopt, or not adopt, but go with, we just keep the structure, and if the board decides to make a motion at a later time, because right now, he's right, it says secretary treasurer and assistant secretary treasurer.
You could change that at a later point.
Okay.
You could change that.
So a board member couldn't come to the next board meeting and say, well, Neola says do this, and this is what we're going with, so we don't need a secretary. We need a treasurer, secretary. Because right now, if we go with this, which I'm for, and my vote doesn't matter, but you have a position that's different than what we actually currently have. So we have a treasurer and we have a secretary. This says treasurer, secretary.
Because that's the way you adopted it back in the time. I
Okay.
think most boards, and probably the original piece does say treasurer, secretary. They are separate positions.
Okay.
Every board that I've ever worked for, it's been treasurer, secretary. We have 4 board officers: board president, board vice president, board treasurer, board secretary, And then we've always had 3 trustees.
That's basically what we have, basically, but we have the assistant.
And we could change that
secretary.
to match what you have now if it's different in Neola.
And we can make that decision in our governance meeting and then make that change. And do we ask the
Yep.
board as a whole, do we need that? Because
You
I
could
just
always
didn't follow
suspend
the
that
policy.
bylaw, do that right away, and then we could change the policy and do the 2 readings. That does not violate law, by the way.
That's right. Are there any more discussion? Seeing none, the motion is to suspend FBO policy to be conducted by a full roll call vote. As I call your name, say yes or no. Secretary Perkins,
Yes.
Trustee McIntyre,
Yes.
Clark is absent.
Is this bylaw and policy? I know we're in the middle, but you didn't say bylaw.
Well, that would, FBO policies is in there.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry.
So trustee, Secretary Perkins, a yes. Trustee McIntyre?
Yes.
President Clark? No. Trustee Relaford is absent. Trustee King?
Yes.
Trustee Luna?
Yes.
Myself, Joyce McNeil, yes.
Is that-
5 yes. And 2 absent.
Is that the only motion we're voting on right now? So I have to use the restroom really quick.
Yeah, we are probably, at this time, we'll turn the floor back over to Mr. Wright, for our policies and bylaws updates.
Can I wait for the treasurer to come back?
Sure, we could. Did anybody want to take a little quick break?
You all got the last pass on the food, right?
Yeah, we already went out.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is go back to 2018 and go through the changes that we put then and move them forward. As we move forward, if you see some policies, since you brought up about the 9 members and so forth, that we need to address at a later point, we need to do that at a later point and make sure we get those taken care of as we're moving through the policies
I have a question.
and bylaws.
So, we as board been talking about different things. For instance, we had board that been talking about this and different things. And for instance, we might have students that comes in and sit on our board. I can't think of that name. But we might want to add, Trustee King has always mentioned he wanted a little bit extra added for our, what do you call that term, Trustee King? The student, is the student council?
It's on there.
No, I'm asking him. Never
Student
mind, I
rep?
was going to ask
Student
something.
rep?
Student rep?
That's right.
So if we want to add additional policy to that, could we do that, or would you do that at a later time? Or if it's something else that we want to...
We can do that at a later time. I don't know what, I just have to look it up.
There's a couple
Student
things I
reps,
want.
most boards have a student rep.
It's on.
Yeah, we have the rep, but it was just some things I want to update, add to that policy, but we'll talk about
Yeah,
that
you
later.
can add things to that.
Okay, that's all I
Because they
need.
don't have voting power on a board
No, they don't.
and things of that nature.
Okay. All right, the floor is yours, Mr. Wright.
Yeah, are we ready? Okay. The first update, which was 30, what we called 33.2, and we're currently at 37.2, was back in 2018, and it had to do with definitions. So in the definitions, it was updated for policy, or for bylaws 0100. So if, Mrs. Beard, if you'd go to policies where it says, click down and get the draft portion to the right up there. Go down to where it says 30, for the board 33-2. Open up the one where it says PO 0100. This is what the updates come to us in. And what I've done is I've moved any change that we've had that we're recommending over to your policy. Anything in green is things that we're adding. Anything in red is something we're striking. Not a lot of big things here in the definitions, but we'll go through it, and you can look at your 0100 that you currently have under your active files, and you'll see the things that we've added is go down, we just added a couple words, such as we changed from wireless communication to personal communication under apps and services. Family member, if you go down a little further, we added a definition of what a family member is.
Mr. Roy, I'm sorry.
You didn't have apps?
Pam, can you help us find this in our computer real quick so we can just see it? Because I can't, it's kind of hard for me to see on the screen.
Oh, go to the website?
Yeah.
On board books?
No, go to the website.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was trying to follow along on my own computer.
No, it's not going to be on the website.
Okay, so this is.
The changes will be up there only.
Okay.
You'll be able to see what's in Flint policy by going to the website.
So are we able to see digitally what the changes are?
Changes are right there.
Okay.
Just right here.
Yeah.
Well, that's helpful. That's bigger now, so that's fine.
So, Mr. Wright, when you make these changes, Pam is in board doc, and she making the changes in board doc, but the board won't be able to see those changes she's making in board doc. We only see those final changes and when we come to the website.
We'll explain them, and if there's optional changes or optional things that you want to accept, she can accept them by putting the X's in the boxes. Or if it's something that we've added, you say, no, we don't want that at Flint, she can cross that off. She can delete it.
Is this the only, I think the question is, can I have this on my computer right now so I can see it closer with my eyes?
What, Pam?
You won't be able to, the board won't be able to see the green and the red.
Okay.
They're going to be able to see everything that's in the black up there, in the regular writing. I have moved the stuff over from what we call the template over to Flint Neola policy.
Oh, yeah, we can read it.
Under the definitions, there's no optional language, there's just things that they're adding, you know, what a family member is. What's the definition of a family member? Back in 2018, there became a new law that said administrators, and if you go down a little bit further, have to have a permit. Effective July 1, 2018, they had to have a permit. So under the principle, we've added must hold the appropriate school administrator certificate or permit. And it's the principal is responsible for getting that. Okay? So it was not in, because you didn't have to have a permit prior to July 1 of 2018. I had to go out and get a permit myself. It was a 5 years. Matter of fact, mine just is going to terminate again on June 30th. If I want to be a superintendent again, I have to update that permit. If you go down a little further, you're going to see the same thing added to the superintendent. That he or she must have a permit. That permit is good for 5 years. The MDE has the requirements of what you have to have that permit. You have to have so many hours in additional hours to be able to get that permit to renew it. Just a little bit like teachers do. Teachers have to get a permit every year. Not too many teachers have what they call a continuing certificate anymore like I had. Back in the old day, we didn't have to have them. And now you do. They have to, every 3 years, they have to update their permit. Okay? Go down a little further. I wanted to show you this because this was what it was back in 2018. So we'd crossed this out. There used to be some optional language that says, unless the board member has notified the board president prior to the meeting that he or she let me get to my policy here. That he or she must participate remotely, and the board president approves remote participation by the board members. That was a change that took place in 2018. That got rescinded a couple years later. So I even left that in there that was a change, but now I've crossed it out because it is no longer, you can no longer do that. The only way that you can vote remotely at a board meeting is if you're a member of the military and you're on duty. That's the only way you can do it. Okay? So that has been added, except accommodate the absent of any member of the board due to military duty. That is part of policy. That is law. The only way you can participate.
But during the pandemic, if it's something the government declares, we can't.
During the pandemic, they changed the law to say that everybody could do you could do remote. Then it was, I believe, was a March 15th of 21 or 20 or 21 or something like that. They changed the law again to say you must be present at a board meeting to be able to vote unless you're part of the military. There's also been an Attorney General's opinion that if an individual has a disability, that they may not be able to be at a meeting, there's a possibility. But again, that's an Attorney General's, which is not law. Give you an example. I had a board member at Goodrich who was a paraplegic. He's in a wheelchair. What if we had a bad snowstorm and he couldn't get in? Could he do it remotely? According to Attorney General's, yes, but not by law. So we would have had to done some things with the Attorney General or with the law to make sure that we was legal to do it. So it's just there. Those are the changes we had back in 2018 and went to 2019, okay? Go now to policy 0167, which talks about closed session. They added something for closed session. So go to the there you go. Yep, right there. Go down a little bit on it. And at the very, you'll see where it says, there is just a little bit of language there that talks about, a lot of it is grammar changes that they've put in there. But below that, the main change that was changed here was to consider, you could go to closed session to consider security planning to address existing threats or prevent potential threats to the safety of the students or staff. This was added as a reason why you could go into closed session. It used to be you could go into it for reasons A, B, C, D, G above. They've added that one back in 2018. If you're going to discuss security for the district, you don't want the entire public knowing what your security plan is. So you can do that under a closed session. Not optional language. It's a reason that you can go into closed session. So you just can't go into closed session for anything. It's only for specific things. Okay? Recommendation from Neola is to accept that one as written. The next one is 1422.01. And it's entitled A Drug-Free Workplace. Now I want you to note something here. It says under the title, just leave it right there, where it says volume 33-2, February 2019, new drug-free workplace. This is a new policy. So here you have to make the decisions on what pieces do you want to add to it. Okay? I've kind of went through and did some of the things for you. So you had to choose an option 1 or an option 2, and we can always change these. Mrs. Baird and I were going through, I was showing her how to change things yesterday. If you chose option 1, needed only if federal funds come directly from Washington. Our federal funds usually don't come directly from Washington. They come to the ISD and then the ISD funnels them to us. So you should choose option 2, which is said applies to most schools. Now, there is another option right there that this board needs to choose. And it basically would, if you choose it, is not tainted by the use of evidence or use of any controlled substance. It would follow up, the superintendent shall establish whatever programs and procedures are necessary to meet the federal certification requirements and is not tainted by the use of evidence or evidence or use of any controlled substance. If you want that piece to be part of your policy, we'd put an X in there. If you don't, she would highlight it and hit delete.
I have a question, Mr. Wright.
Yes.
When other boards go through the process of updating these, you said every 2 years, right?
They do it twice a year.
Twice a year? How long does that process take?
Usually about I'm at the meeting sometimes an hour, hour and a half. It depends on how long the update is. The last update we had was a long one. I've had some updates where we only did 4 policies, and we could be done in 45 minutes.
Okay. And it's, okay, that's all my only question.
Nope.
Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you.
And please don't hesitate to ask those questions. So you need to make a decision there on where you see that, I call them bow legs, whatever you want to call it. That's the optional language that you have the choice in.
You want us to make a decision now?
Yeah.
And then just between that option and the one above?
It's just that one piece right there where it says is not tainted. The one above doesn't pertain to you, so that's why we crossed it off.
Okay, so this is just added language that you.
Yes.
that you can't-
This was a new policy. You don't have this currently, you don't have this policy in your file. But it's something you should have in your file.
So you need a motion for that.
Nope, just determine what you do, because this is a first reading. Here's what we do. We do a first reading, we make changes into it. Then you come back and you'll do a second reading and say, everything is okay, we liked what we had. Then you do an action item to adopt the policies as written.
I would think anything that has, her question was, is edibles and all of that included? But I would think that anything that has that's drug related, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a big issue here in our school.
Yeah, my only concern, and I don't know the federal guidelines for drug use, but if someone takes a medication, that wouldn't be included, right?
No, that would, if you got a drug prescript, you're okay.
Okay.
You cannot take marijuana while you're on school campus. I don't care if you have a doctor's prescription, you cannot use marijuana on school grounds. Federal law.
So this is their suggestion.
So this is your suggestion, this is based on law.
Yep.
We have to make a decision.
Yep, you need to make a decision. I would recommend that you would take that option that's there.
Option 2.
Take option 2 and then the one right below it. You see, let me walk up there. Here's where you have to make a decision on this piece right here. This one, we need to choose between option 1 and option 2 here. Option 1 does not relate to you because all federal fund title money comes through the ISD.
Right.
So you need to take an option 2.
2.
Now, you have an optional language here. Do you want this optional language in there?
Yeah.
If you do, you put an X in it.
So the board making a decision on that now, right?
Yep.
Okay. Do we need to take a vote or just consensus?
Nope. You don't need to take a vote. We're doing a reading.
Okay.
And then after this reading, if you come back to the second meeting and say, you know, we made that X in there, and I don't like that X in there. I don't think it should be there.
Right.
You could change it at that point. Then after you do the second reading, then you do an adoption. That's when you do the motion.
Okay.
Okay, all right, that makes
So
sense.
it sounds like option 1 is obsolete regardless, so we shouldn't
Right.
even use that.
There
Right.
might be a few schools in the state or in the country
Right.
that deals with money coming directly from the federal government, Washington DC, to the district. But in Michigan, the monies flow to the ISDs and then flow to you.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So that's why we put them in both.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Can I just say that this is a wonderful process, and I like when it works this way, and it should be streamlined, so you're saying so that it's not
archaic language that,
It's too long,
Yeah.
but what the ideal is, like, we, like, talk about it with an expert, we come to like some sort of like a general consensus, and then you can go and talk to policy experts, to community partners, and kind of get like different opinions, and then come back and,
Yeah.
okay.
This is what I want, is questions from you people.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then we have time to think about it, and then we come back and then have another discussion. So this
Yeah.
is wonderful. Thank
It
you.
is.
Right.
I can give you recommendations, but the board needs to make the final decisions, okay?
I think that we should do option 2 on it.
Me too.
Option 2, and then take the one in the Bow Lakes.
Right.
Yep. You know how you have to do that? You have to go up and hit at the top, you hit the pencil,
Okay, that's right.
which allows you to make the changes. Then you can go down,
That makes sense to me.
should be able to put the X in there. Keep going down. Keep going down. Keep going down. Is that, want to let you go down any further? There it is. Keep going down a little bit further where it says, with notes, there you go, click on there and put an X. There you go.
Then you save it.
Yep, and then hit save.
And then there's a transfer over to our policy.
It does not transfer over to your policy yet because you have to have a second reading, and then you have to have an approval. And once you take that approval, then it's acceptable, we send it to Neola, and they will put it on your website for you. Okay, go to the next one, 2022, go down to, or go back to where it was 33, or 34-1. Nope, keep going, excuse me, 33, it's 33-2. Keep going up. Go to 2210. Okay, here's what your policy looked like this on the right here, on policy 2210. There was a law change by legislation that said that all districts must provide grade-appropriate instruction on career development in each grade level for kindergarten through 12th grade. This law came into effect in 2018. You'll see it's a double A. They'll fix that up because it's going to, all the letters in the front will change when they adopt it down there at Neola. But this now puts into law, puts into your policy what the law changed in 2018. If we'd have been doing this update back in 2018, this is what I'd have reviewed with you. Nothing to add here. It's a requirement. So we move on. But we need to look at it to make sure you see it. Go to 3120. I know some districts like to have paper in their hands when they go through this. You see all these things.
Yeah.
It might be easier for you at times.
Yeah. No, I think you're doing a good job. This was
But here's the change that took place. And here's what your policy currently says, because here's where your policy is in violation of the law. Well, it's in violation, but you could maintain this if you wanted to. Back in 2018, they determined there is a difficult time finding substitute teachers in this thing. So it used to be at one point you had to have 90 credit hours. Someplace it should be in there. It should be under B down below. See if it goes to the right a little bit more. There it is, right there. They changed the law of required to how many hours you had to have from 90 to 60. That's what law is. So that's what we did. We changed in policy that you no longer have to have the 90 hours, you need to have the 60 matched up with the law. That was our change. Do you need to make a decision on that? No, you don't. It's a law. You could have left it at 90 if you wanted to, but you would have had a much more difficult time finding substitute teachers. You can't find substitute teachers with 60 hours. It is just a bear. I know how it is. That was the only change in that policy.
So we're changing it.
Yep,
We're changing it to 60.
yep, we're changing it to 60. You'll see that I had it red, I had crossed off the 90, and I typed in 60. You at 312004 now, or are you still at 3120?
20.
Okay, let's go to 312004 now. Whoops. Right there. Okay. Here, this is employment of substitutes. 3,000, as we remember, is professional staff. So that means this is for teachers and so forth. So again, in professional staff, we had to change the 90 to 60. But the law also changed to say that the superintendent may employ non-certified substitutes to teach an industrial technology education program or career and technical education program, providing they meet all the conditions established by law and by the superintendent. That may mean they need to have so many hours of they worked in an industrial area. Maybe they were welding. They were welders and they worked for 1,000 hours. They didn't have any college credits on it, but they had done it through on-the-job training stuff. As long as they met those requirements, you could teach, you could employ those as instructors for things like welding. That is law. That was a change to what you have in your policy. We also added community colleges in here because those 60 hours can come from a regular university, from, I got to get my glasses on to read, from a regular university, any college, or a community college. And it also states that an associate's degree, so if you got an associate's degree in less than 60 hours, as long as you had that associate's degree, you could substitute teach. I don't know of any that you'll get it in less than 60 hours, but if you have an associate's degree, you can be a substitute teacher. Okay? There was no optional language in there. This was all required language. This was law changes is what predicated this law, this change in our policy. The next policy is 5113.02. We changed the name of the policy a little bit. It used to be Schools of Choice Options provided by the No Child Left Behind Act. The No Child Left Behind Act is no longer in existence. That was a law that went out in 2018.
That's Every Student Succeeds Act right now.
Let's say that again?
It's the Every Student Succeeds Act that's in place right now.
It's ESSA, is
ESSA,
in.
yeah.
Elementary and Secondary Education Act is the one that's in employment now. So what we did is we crossed off the No Child Left Behind, and we instituted Elementary and Secondary Education Act as amended to make the policy correct. Because we left No Child Left Behind, they're going to say, hey, there's no law, there is no child left behind. ESSA is the new one. So again, we just made that change to make sure our policies were up to date. Okay? Next one is policy 6321. And it's entitled New Construction Renovation. Back in 2018, the state passed a new law. The new law says before commencing construction on any new school building or a major renovation of an existing school building, the board shall consult on the plans for the construction of major renovation regarding school safety issues with law enforcement, that is the first responder and the first responder for the school building at issue. For purpose of this paragraph, school building means any building intended to be used to provide instruction to students in any recreational and athletic structure or field intended to be used by students. You pass bond issues, and you're doing major construction, you're doing reconstruction, and you're adding to that building. Maybe I added a new gymnasium to a building that I had. I had to bring in police and first responders to look at the plans to make sure that we had safety taken care of for people to exit in a way that we could make sure that unwanted visitors couldn't come in. They looked and reviewed the plans. That was the law that took in effect. That was law, so we just added that to the policy. And it's there now. No optional language was added to this. In many of these policies, there isn't optional language. You've chosen the optional language in the past. Okay? Go to 6325. There was right there, the main reason for the change in this policy, and a couple schools got dinged on it during their audits, that they had to have something in their policy about includes affirmative steps for small and minority business and women's business enterprises. You have to have that in the policy for federal policy for procurement. Remember, 6325 is entitled Procurement for Federal Grants and Funds. Over the last 4 or 5 years, this policy has been updated every year. Why has it been updated every year? So many dollars are now flowing to schools from the feds. They didn't used to flow that kind of money to feds. The districts that I were in, every federal dollar we used for salaries. We didn't have a chance to build things with it. With ESSER and some of these other things, now all of a sudden you're able to do some things with these federal dollars. There was another one a little further down where it talks about competition. It says all procurement transactions. If you can just move down a little bit, Mrs. Baird. Right there.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So we have we have several bids out for like busing, renovation designs like that are ongoing right now. I know this is the first reading, and the second reading there's an adoption. Let's say like in the middle of that process we adopted this, it wouldn't affect those bids, would it?
I'm going to tell you right now, when your architects are getting these, they're drawing up the plans, they know the law, and they're making sure they're including fire and first responders.
Okay, just making.
But it's now in policy,
Okay.
okay? Good question.
Thank you.
Don't hesitate to ask those questions, please. Just, that's what I want you to do.
Yeah, I don't want to ask.
You're not bothering me, you're helping me,
Thank
okay?
you.
I gotta see where we're at. Okay. They've just added a few pieces throughout this policy. Main thing is just some words to further clarify it. But if you go down a little further, there's a limit, a money limit that they changed. It went from $3,500 to $10,000 for what a micro purchase can be. A micro purchase used to be something that was the max that you could do was $3,500, now it's $10,000. That was updated in 2018. And if you go down a little bit further, it's under foods, basically it's food service. It went from $150,000 to $250,000. Right there it is. Okay? Optional languages wasn't there on this one. And you're seeing a lot of these on these updates. It's not optional language there, it's law that's taken place. Okay? Go to the next one. Go to 6605. Crowdfunding. I didn't know what crowdfunding was back in 2015-16. I'd never heard of it. All of a sudden, I started finding out what it was. Somebody go to the internet, put a thing out there, and people could fundraise while they were on the internet. So crowdfunding became a big piece. You had a policy that dealt with crowdfunding. We changed the definition for crowdfunding. You'll see that we crossed off the old definition and instituted a new definition below it. That isn't the big piece to this policy, to this change. I think the big piece is a little bit further down, really that last sentence that said, materials, supplies, equipment, and other proceeds of crowdfunding activity become property of the district or school, cash or equivalent payment to the district personnel, and payment to district personnel is prohibited. All physical transactions shall comply with appropriate district policies. So if you have an employee that does crowdfunding, and then all of a sudden they leave the district, they don't get to take the product that they bought through this crowdfunding with them. If they did computers for a classroom or furniture, they don't get to take that. That becomes property of the school if they do it through the school. You cannot take money that you did through crowdfunding and pay salaries with it. It's against the law. Okay? So now it's in your policy. It basically says, so if somebody says, well, I want to do some crowdfunding, and I'm gonna make some extra money here, they go look at your policy. Oh, I can't do that. So it's there. But that's what law is. And back in 2018, crowdfunding was something that was fairly new at this point. Like I said, I had a individual move from one building to the next, and we'd given them all computers in the one building, and they all took something else. They all took smart boards in the next building. Well, we told him, you're moving from building A to building B. You can't take your smart board with you. Okay, but I want a smart board. All of a sudden, he had to go do some crowdfunding to be able to get a smart board. Or the district could have purchased one for him. But he also wants some furniture, so we let it go. But we had to develop a policy. We did not have the policy at that point. The next policy is policy 8402. You're not going to find that in your book. You see, I'm going to show you why. Do you see where it says under the title line? Volume 33-2, February 2019, new emergency operations plan. So this is a brand new policy. So you wouldn't have had it in yours. So this is a policy. Now you got to look to see if you want it. The law says by no later than January 1st, 2020, for each school building and district shall develop an emergency operations plan or adopt a statewide school information policy to comply with the requirements of this policy. We are doing this through the ISD. So I know you have it, but you didn't have a policy that stated it. So my recommendation is you accept this policy because it's all there. It's the EOP plan, Devin, that you just, or Kevin, that you just had meetings on it not too long ago.
Right.
Within the last month and a half. They just keep rolling and updating it. So now you got the policy by accepting this. And you did not have one before because this was a new policy that was developed back in 2018, which required you to do it.
Right.
If we'd have updated policies, you'd have had it all along.
Right.
The next policy is food services, 8,500. And the reason for this change, it used to be when a student had a special food service plan that just the food service director could say yay or nay. Now it says you must have a team. Now we look at that team, look at the changes. If determined appropriate by a team of qualified individuals, including but not limited to the principal, school nurse, parent, director of food services, and blank. Is that who you want to be on the team? Is there somebody else you want to be on that team? If there's somebody else that you want on that team, you'd put it on that line and you type it in. If the principal, school nurse, and food service director is all you want on the team, you can do that. You probably want the parent, because the parent probably going to have a doctor's statement that this child has to be gluten-free. She has a peanut allergy. They have an allergy to broccoli or some darn thing, okay?
Is it possible to leave the language that you put, but not limited to?
Yep, you can add that.
So the board just really doesn't have to say right now. hey,
So they don't have to say right now, you could put limited to. Yes, you could.
Okay.
So what you would do is click on the pencil at the top. Yep, we're going to add to it. And scroll down. And when it comes to the second reading, you said, you know, that doesn't make sense. I don't want that in there. You can take it out. Boy, you got that pretty small. Maybe you can see it better on yours. Put an X in that box right there. And then Kevlin said, not limited to?
It's there already.
Yeah.
It's already there.
Oh, it's already there?
But not limited to.
Yeah.
So that it leaves an opportunity to be able to add a parent if you like a parent.
Yeah.
Or whatever, is decided.
So what language would you like to add, sir?
No. I'm not asking to add language. I was asking, can we leave it like you have it?
Yes, we can.
Oh, that's what I was asking.
all right.
Okay. So what you're going to do is, you see what, take that X back out of that piece and highlight that box, the parentheses, and draw a line a little bit through it. The track change, well, click it again because the track changes were already on. There you go. Highlight it. Whoops, not all the way. And it does that all the time on you. And hit delete. Okay? And hit save. And those were the changes. The next policy is policy 8640. As I believe you did not have this policy in your book, I thought maybe it was one that you would want. It was in here. If you still don't want it, we can get rid of it.
Transportation.
So, Mr. Johnson, I have a question. The last sentence down there, as we be talking about trips and stuff.
You can cross that last sentence off if you want.
So do we have that in place, if there's something we do for each trip or something? Just.
administrative guidelines, yes, we do have administrative guidelines.
Not for Neola, you don't at this point. We have to adopt them.
Oh, you saying, well, I'm saying we have a process. How about I say that?
Okay, all right.
We have a process for transportation. So, yes.
Okay, you're okay with it?
Yes.
Yep,
I mean,
Okay,
Yeah.
yep.
I think you're supposed to say yes, adopt, based on policy, Mr. Jones, that if you see something, because you're an administrator, it says you have to engage with us as well. So if you got some input and something that you think we need to do, just feel comfortable because it's a team.
okay? Okay, trustee Luna, you asked me earlier, how long does it take to do one of these updates? We just did one. We just did one.
Wow.
So everything I've done since I started with the definitions till now is one. Okay? That's how long it takes on some of them, okay? On this one is what it took.
Thank you. That was great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was. And what time
And
is it now?
smooth.
10:45.
Oh, that's not bad. Okay.
Okay? So let's go to this next one. Let's do the next update. The next update is 1431. Okay? And you'll see, those are all the different policies that's in there. First one is policy 1420. Whoops, we under draft? Yeah, it's under draft. Go to draft.
It's one what?
Go to draft.
1431, I think is what it said.
Keep going down. 1431, there you go. See, it says for the board. There's ones I've moved all over for you. For the board, 34-1. So the first policy that we updated in that update was administrator evaluations. Back in the time when we adopted these evaluations, we had all these dates in there. There was different levels of when we could use student assessment data and so forth. Well, it became to 2008 to 2019 now. We eliminated all that stuff. So we eliminated all those dates to try to shorten the policy up a little bit, so it wasn't quite as confusing. And that's what we used. That's what we eliminated. So we eliminated the 15-16, the 16-17, and put in there for the 18-19 school year.
Yeah, I don't see it.
You don't, policy 1420, 1420. Yep,
I don't think it's in this book.
It's not, oh, okay. 'Cause I kept looking, I couldn't
It's
find
not in there. I
You
didn't
don't
see
have it?
Uh-uh.
okay.
We have a 1421, but not a
So
14.
it was in 2016, that's why,
You're
is
right.
because you probably adopted 2015, but I carried it over because I knew you was gonna need this one. I knew you was gonna need administrative evaluations.
And we will be getting the updated books sooner or later.
Okay.
Okay? And there was optional language at the end, which I'm sure that you didn't have, which was eliminated. It was when they initially came up with this law that evaluations had to follow this law until the contract ran out. Because if you had a 5-year contract that said we're going to evaluate teachers or administrators every other year, you could follow that. But once your contract ended, you had to evaluate them every year. It may change again, as we know that there is a law being adjusted in there right now about evaluations is going to change. We used to evaluate teachers every 3 years. We used to evaluate administrators every 3 years. Now the new law says you have to do it every year. I really think you're going to see a big change, and you're going to see the student growth portion may be eliminated from it.
really?
That's a possibility. You're going to see a lot of changes. I'm hoping it is. I'm not speaking, this is not Neola, this is Wainwright speaking.
But I'm gonna say, our system is broken.
It is broken. It's broken, I agree with you, Kip.
Debating about on student growth. I'm glad to hear that, 'cause that's an
But
unfair
that is one of those
evaluation.
prohibited subject of bargaining that's being addressed right now.
You say it's being addressed now?
It's being addressed. It is in committee right now. The next policy is 2265. You're not going to see this policy in your book. Why?
Is it new?
It says September 19th, new child care staff and volunteers.
What's that number again?
2265.
It's not in there, Joyce.
Yeah, that's okay. I just.
It's not in there because this was a new policy we added back then. So now we need to draft it. Okay? So to draft it, this is where we make the changes and select certain things. And it says all staff members employed by the district whose job responsibilities include working with children in the district's. Which one of these things programs do you currently have? So you're going to have to click the pencil on this one, Mrs. Baird. And you're going to have to click the track changes on. There you go. And now, which programs do you have?
Preschool, before and after programs, early childhood development.
Click, click, click. Any of the other two?
No.
So what you do, you're going to highlight the last three boxes there. Hit delete. There you go. Okay, now we go on down. And other persons, let's just go back just a little bit more. And all other persons 18 or older who provide supervision, take care of unsupervised access of children in the program, do we want including volunteers? I would think you would. So you go to that box. My recommendation is that you put including volunteers. You want them to have a check, security check, right?
Yeah.
You just don't want anybody in there. Okay, keep going down. Now you got an option. Volunteers shall not engage in unsupervised care or supervision of children to be provided unsupervised access to children in the programs.
Amen.
Okay, so you want an X in there. Some districts may say, we don't care if volunteers do it unsupervised.
Yeah, we do.
No, I understand. Okay, now there's another box that we got to check. District staff members will be informed of their supervisory roles, including the requirements that volunteers shall not engage in unsupervised care.
Right.
So you probably want an X in that one, because you chose the box above it.
Right. Yes.
That one right there, correct. Okay. And then it says pick one for the next one. Staff members must report any issues of concerns of any nature relating to volunteers to the, who do you want them to report it to? Building principal, superintendent, or is there somebody else?
Well, they should be both. In some cases, the principal's not there, so what do y'all follow?
You can do it either, you can do it whatever.
Similar to that over at homes.
If you want them both, you can put both.
Yeah,
It should be both, because like, what if
Okay.
you're,
yeah, one's not there, then
Yeah.
the other one, you know.
Okay, go to that box. Is there anybody else on top of that?
Where is that pick one?
You can put a name, or you can put another position in there where the next box is. You see where the line is? Whenever you do superintendent or designee is assumed. That is assumed.
So my HR department will assume under superintendent.
You could not do superintendent, you could put HR department.
Well,
Or you can put HR department in there if you want.
I guess if you're saying, when it says superintendent, it may not be me per say, but it will be the administration.
It could be, yes.
So you can assign who you want.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Okay, so then what I would do is cross off do like you did above, highlight that box with the line, and hit delete. As the first,
No, I think superintendent is fine. I mean, if you're able to designate,
That's,
later on.
that's what I'm,
yep,
okay.
okay. At the first available opportunity, the blank, insert selection from preceding sentence. So you're going to want to put building principal on that line. You're going to want to type building principal or superintendent. Yep. And it says all volunteers must comply with the board policies and district guidelines while acting as a volunteer and are subject to removal or prosecution from participating as a volunteer in the program. So if they violate this, they're liable. You can get rid of them. Okay?
Quick question.
Yes.
Probably Mr. Jones. What is the current process? Like, do we have a defined process for staff to report those kind of complaints?
Yes, so normally what would happen, the building principal, if there's a volunteer that had an issue, they would report it to the HR department, and then we just won't have that person come.
Is that like a written down thing, or that's like
I would have to check to see if it's something we have already.
I think, so if, should that be a policy thing that we define a process on? I'm just trying to get us into a process point, as in you can't, put your own kind of, spin on it, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a direct step-by-step what the process is supposed to go.
So Wayne,
That could be an administrative guideline.
that's what I was about to say.
Gotcha.
So
Yep.
we developed-
I knew what you were going to say.
Yeah.
I read your mind on that one.
So
It said it right above your
so
head.
processes are developed through the administrative guidelines.
Correct.
Based on
Policy.
the policies.
Correct.
Okay.
So we'll be able to go over the processes, and I think that's.
And that's
sometimes
what
where
it-
we have our problems,
Yes.
is we don't understand the process.
And administrators could be involved in that. I don't need the board involved in that unless they want them to be, but normally they're not.
Yeah, okay,
Okay?
yeah.
Let's go to 2450. And I don't think you had this policy, and you may not need it.
24,
Whoops, did I skip some?
yeah,
Okay, you're right, I know why. Go to 2410.
10,
Yep.
24, 10.
These were special, this was a special, these three policies were special add-ons, that's why they're in different order. Okay, back in the 2019, there was a big deal about recommendations of students for abortion, to have an abortion. And when the law initially came out, it said if somebody were to recommend somebody for an abortion, a guidance counselor, a principal, or something, you can go to so-and-so to get an abortion. They could be fined up to $100,000 and could be put in jail. They changed the policy a little bit to eliminate that $100,000 fine, but again, they left it in place that you could not recommend a student to go to an abortion, or you could not tell them where they could go to get an abortion. Oh, you can go down to such and such, and they do abortions there. You can't do that. Family assistance or something of that nature. So the policy was rewritten to eliminate what the old one said to what the new one said. This was a required by law policy. This was a big deal back in 2018-19. Remember, we were up at MASA when this law got passed again and was changed at the legislative level, and it was immediate implementation. Okay? Required piece that you cannot give assistance or recommendations. Yeah. The next policy is 2414. Okay, and it's reproductive health and family planning. I gotta see where I've got it in my book here. Again, that talked about referring students for abortion. If you have a health class, reproductive health and family planning, the instructor in that class cannot give any recommendations that they should go through an abortion or where to go to get an abortion, against the law.
So if they ask the teacher of any site, they still can't say nothing?
Nope, absolutely not. If they do, they're in violation of the law. Let's see if I got it at the end. Yeah, it is. Okay, go to 2418, sex education. Do you have this? Maybe you didn't have this policy. Do you, look and see if you have this policy.
Yes,
You-
2418, yes, it's there.
Okay. 2418, okay, you did have it. Again, there was reference put in here about abort. Additionally, any school board of, any school official, member of the board, or employee of the school who is not the parent or legal guardian of the student involved, is prohibited from referring a student for an abortion or assisting a student in obtaining an abortion against the law. So it's in that policy also. So it was added to that policy. Okay? The next one is 2450. Do you have community education or adult education?
We have community education,
Yes.
Education.
meaning adult programming.
Yes.
We don't have adult education, no.
Do you have any community programs where, this was a policy you did not have, and so I pulled it over just in case you might want it. Not recommending that you have it, you might not want it.
We do have providing education, culture, and recreation opportunities. Yes, we have that.
Do you want this policy in your book?
I would think we would need it if we're doing it.
Okay, if you need it, and then we need to,
Is that that parent university thing?
That and some of the after-school programming does allow for parents to come in and do like yoga, and be a part.
and do you charge them a fee to do yoga and things? Okay,
So what about, it says in the evening and day, so we got to choose which one?
you choose any of those that you want, yes.
So
You could choose in the evening and day, you could choose in the evening.
I would say both because
Yeah.
some
If you
of our
want both,
parent
you can
meetings
choose
and Title
both.
I programs is during the day, and then some of our activities that parents do with CREM.
So when it prints out the program, if you check both the boxes, with respect to community education, the board shall provide programs in the evening and day.
And I think all three should be at the bottom, check all that, because we're doing that anyway.
For the purpose of recreation, cultural, and education, yep, you can select all of those. I didn't know whether you wanted this policy or not. If I thought there was one that was being updated that you might want and you didn't have, I was gonna throw it in here, and you make a decision here at this meeting.
the technical training and restraining needs of local workers. Can you explain that a little bit?
Interests of the community as well as the vocational and technical training and needs of local. So are you doing vocational type training programs here, teaching people how to weld so they can get another job, things of that nature?
Yes.
Okay? That's what that would mean.
So put an X there.
For people that aren't your regular students. So you don't have adult education, you said?
We don't have adult education, but we have, parent training programs. We have some of the cultural opportunities, like dance after school. Parents do like the hip-hop dances and things like that, that we allow.
Okay, let's roll that down just a little bit, Mrs. Baird. Let's read the whole, if we were to select this stuff, leave it right there. With regard to an adult education, the board shall provide a, you could say, basic continuation program for anyone over the age of 16, and I think it should be 18, who is not attending, who is not attending high school, as an opportunity to complete the requirements of high school diploma.
Excuse, this is, if I may, this is seeming like we're providing like credit education, like this is,
This would be to get the GED and things of this nature.
so we're not doing that currently.
We don't have a G.
Yeah, then I would cross all of that off.
Okay, yeah, we don't
So,
have that.
so we should make a policy pertaining to,
You don't have to make a policy. If you're not doing it, just don't have a
but I'm
policy.
saying about the other things that we're doing with the.
You've got
parent
it up there. You can keep that in there and not have this portion into it.
Oh, so you're saying just don't add this part of it?
You just don't add that part of it.
Okay, now I
Just
understand.
delete that out.
Okay.
Do you charge these people anything?
No.
Because this next option, which was the reason for the change in this policy, is if they had veterans benefits and transition type pieces, they could use those benefits from the Veterans Administration to pay for it. But if you're not charging, it doesn't make any difference. You don't need it.
Right.
So I would cross it off.
All right.
Okay, keep going down. I think there's a little bit more at the bottom.
Could
I
we-
think there's a
quick
little bit,
question.
there's one more thing in there. The board shall also maintain an Americanization program of instruction for the benefit of foreign-born residents in the district. Do you have anything that you use for foreign students or foreign individuals to acclimate them to American-type situations? To our customs? Probably not, is my guess.
We don't have that.
Could we, scroll back? I'm curious, could we define adult education in our district? Like, do you, like, I'm saying like later on, I mean, not later on, I'm sorry, so adult education could still be considered the accredited education, so could we like adult education programs that we have? I don't know how to word that if I didn't read the wording right.
Yeah, because I guess I'm still a
Little fuzzy on this?
only because we do not provide,
Nope.
if a person doesn't go, doesn't attend Flint Community Schools as a student, we're not providing any other adult education programs that will give a person a GED.
Okay. Adult education would be things where you're providing them an educational piece where they can get a degree, might be a GED and so forth. Community education is more or less a type of education where you're providing the student the ability to have some kind of recreational type thing, or maybe it gives them some kind of a vocational type thing, such as maybe welding. I keep thinking welding, it's an easy one to come to in my mind.
Or the arts.
Or some arts,
Right,
yes.
so we do that. We do
Yep.
community.
So you're not doing the community education piece.
We are. We
Or, I mean,
have-
you are,
we
but you're not
have-
doing the adult education. So we crossed off the thing. So Once we get to the bottom of this, I'm going to recommend we do one other thing towards the top. I would recommend you not take that choice there at the bottom about the Americanization program,
Right.
okay? I would cross that off, highlight it, and hit delete. Nope. Nope, okay.
That's the VA thing.
You're not charging any funds, so I don't think it'd make a difference. Now, I'd go to the top, and I would cross off in the title, adult educate, go down just a little bit, where it says community, I would just put community education and cross off and adult. Hit delete. Now I hit save.
Sounds good.
Was there?
No. Okay, but it doesn't. Oh, you're talking about right down here? Yeah.
Yep, she's talking that first paragraph. Yep, I understand what you're after. I do know what you're talking about.
So it can be applied to community if that's necessarily, it's not redundant in that.
Yep. I think you're okay. Looks to me. And if you, as you read it later, if you find something you don't like, we can change it before we adopt it. Because you're not adopting it, you're just doing the first reading right now. Okay? Next one is 2628. And it talks about 31A money, which is at-risk money, which you do get a lot of, probably. And it's language that is being basically put in just to cover what a economically disadvantaged English learnings, an English learner is. So I recommend that you keep that one as is. Any concerns?
No, not for me.
Okay. Then I'd go to the next one, which is policy 3210. You're going to see a lot of language added here. This is language that came from the State Board of Education, asked districts to put this in their policies. It'd be good just to read through what it says. I think it's pretty good stuff. I used it, I copied this policy and gave it to my teaching staff first day of school one year when this first was put out.
You said it's 3210?
3210. You won't have anything in
Totally
green in yours.
No,
Yours is going to start off with
Stat.
recognize basic dignities of all individuals with whom they interact in performance of duties. This green is new stuff that that the State Board of Education recommended that we add. The green is what State Board of Education asked us to add.
I think it's what we're asking.
It is what we're asking.
It's what we're asking for our educators to do.
Yes, exactly, Kevin. I didn't see a thing in there when I adopted this one that I thought wasn't good.
Now, this policy, is this policy for all in the district? Does this include?
This is 3210. 3,000s go to professional staff.
Got it.
What about support? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Um,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure if it makes sense to maybe include some of the contracted staff you have in the district too, or not. I'm not sure if we can even put that in our policy, because we have a lot of staff that's not a direct.
If it's in their contract, I think they have to abide by it anyways. I don't know if I'd want to put it in policy.
Okay.
Like
And that-
each-
that-
If it's in their contract,
We can't dual employ,
Okay.
right? So we have to, there's a line there.
Gotcha. Okay.
But in their contract, they are to follow.
yep, they absolutely have to. That's where you can zing them, you can zing somebody if they don't follow their contract.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
And if you notice at the very bottom, it talks about in keeping with ethical responsibilities of professional staff, the Board of Education prohibits staff members from engaging in a romantic relation or sexual relationship with any type of student, with any student, and so on and so on. Something that's very important that you have in there.
Right.
That wasn't updated since 2003, was updated 2019. The next one is a very simple policy to update. It's 3220. Smile back on Kevlin's face again. Where's professional staff evaluation? It eliminated all the dates. I see this policy being updated again sometime in the next year. Because you're going to see something taking place in legislation dealing with evaluations of teachers. Guaranteed. This just eliminated all the dates and stuff. Everything in the black is what you had initially. So just keep scrolling down, if you would, Mrs. Beard. See, beginning in the year 16-17 school year, we're well past that. So now it's going to just read, at least one observation must be unscheduled. The school administrator responsible for the teacher's performance evaluation conduct at least one of the observations. Okay? There wasn't any optional language in this one. This was just kind of cleaning up the policy a little bit. $5230 is next.
Required staff is principals and teachers, assistant principals, those are required staff. That the law and the superintendent.
Late arrival and early dismissal. We added a piece of optional language. This is something if you want in there, you can put in there. If you don't want it in there, you don't need to put it in there. It basically says So if you want, so we'll say somebody's coming to take a child out of a program early in the day, before the end of the day. They must present photo identification as required for anyone authorized such custody.
I support that.
So I will say this,
We have that though.
in agreement with that, there's something coming to you all in the next meeting where each building will have, anyone that comes in, they will have to put in their photo ID into a system so that we know who's coming in the building. That's coming to you all in
Yes.
the next meeting. But that goes along with that
That's something we
policy.
talked about, right?
Okay, pencil, need to click on the pencil.
That's good. That's like a scanner thing?
Yeah, it's a system where
Wow.
you'll know if a person should be around children or not.
So automatically, okay, that'd be cool.
And now you have it in policy. This is for early.
Can we make sure that parents have that?
What do you mean?
Because it's like, it's gonna have this, make sure that all caretakers and parents have that, an ID to scan.
Got it. But I think that there's more than one way to do it, because I understand that some of our current families may not have a license. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, just make sure that they have some kind of identification that has something that can be scanned with an ID. And if there are any barriers to that, to make sure
We
that
need to
we
work
follow
on,
those
yeah.
come in. I mean, there's.
You don't want to
probably-
swiftly move into that and then we haven't given
If
that.
we're requiring it, just make sure that we have anyone who needs it to have that.
And your state ID has the scanner on the back, if they don't have.
They do
Sometimes
it
we
in
don't
the charter.
have, like,
The new ones,
yeah, but
they
I mean,
have the
maybe
scanner.
help anyone who
It's
needs
for additionals, right? Like, so the guardian is coming in,
I'm just, I'm
Yeah,
thinking,
yeah.
because with our district, that would be a nice gesture, something to bear in mind.
yeah.
Okay.
So I wouldn't necessarily say it would be for the parent.
Yeah,
It would be for guests or other
Yeah.
people that comes in.
even parents need that, yeah, okay.
The next policy is 5330.02 entitled opioid antagonists. Now, the update on this one, and you have this policy, basically states that if it's optional policy, that if you have this policy, you have to have Narcan in every building that there are children in, i.e., if you've got a K-1 building, you need to have Narcan in it. And you have to have someone trained in the use of Narcan.
Quick question.
Yes.
With that, so we have safety officers at our school. So could that, let's say we have the police officers at our secondary schools, middle school, secondaries, would that be okay for them, that be in compliance?
From my knowledge, yes.
But what about, so I think that may be a Mr. Jones question, so what about our elementary ones? So we have teach out at the moment. Would they would have to have Narcan and know how to use that, properly trained in that?
There isn't much to training them, just
No.
boom, just hit them with it, and
So we gotta have it available.
you got to have it available and have somebody train. 5 minutes is the training?
Right, I understand that part, right, but
We
it's,
have that.
we do,
We do have that.
Narcan in schools.
We have, called yeah. But our nurses or our
Oh,
principals.
Narcan.
Yeah, but our nurses, principals, social workers, those folks would be the ones that.
Got you.
That are
Okay.
trained, yeah.
I forgot we have nurses. I
Who
forgot.
live voluntarily, like you said, it takes 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, I've been trained to do it,
Yeah.
but it's like, it would be nice to have it as policy,
But it is.
right? Are you saying that we have to do a checkbox, or?
Nope, there's no checkbox in this one. There's no checkbox there.
Okay.
And if you have the policy, it says the district shall purchase opioid antagonists and distribute the opioid antagonists to an employee or agent of the district who has been trained in the administration of that opioid antagonist. An opioid antagonist is, and they define what they are, an equally safe drug approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration for the treatment of drug abuse. Why would you have to have it in the K-1 building? Well, you could have a parent come in and go down. You never can tell. But it says all buildings. That gives,
Our first step would always be to call 911.
Yeah.
yeah, you're gonna call 911, and you have to. But you're gonna, by the time 911 gets there, the person could be dead too. And if you got Narcan, you can issue it and
Right.
it takes care of it. Initially, many districts didn't take this policy, maybe 50%. I've had more and more of them come back and want this policy later. So I've reissued this policy to a lot of people. I will tell you, I had this policy in Goodrich. We had Narcan in every building, just in case. You know, you never can tell.
There's been more education about it. So
That's right.
it's- yeah.
It's exactly right. Policy 6800. New law took place back in about 2019. They called it Gadsby 84. And it basically has to do with auditing of schools. We've had different places. You had Gadsby 54. We had to do the different, there was another one, Gadsby, I can't remember what the number was. But Gadsby 84 said now all of a sudden we have to do all the trust and aid. We have to review all trust and agency funds to make sure spending is done appropriately. Added the clause, it's a required by law that it be done. So just added it in. That's now in policy. It wasn't required to do the trust and agency funds prior. Now it is required. And so your auditors are already doing it, but now it's in policy. No optional language. The next policy, you didn't have. I didn't know if you wanted this one or not. It was one that we'd updated, so I just kind of threw it in there. Disposition of real property. If you're selling something. Don't have to have it, it's not required. But if you do want it, then you have to go through and select all the optional language that will affect what you want. This is what you did when you drafted policy. A lot of these things we're not seeing the optional languages in because you've already made these decisions back in 2013, 14, and 15. This is a policy you didn't take, so if you want to now all of a sudden take it, you have to select what pieces you do want in it.
So we in that process right now.
This might be one then you want to sit down and concentrate on a little bit instead of trying to make a decision right here with it.
Yeah, I figured we're probably gonna update this at some point.
Could you,
You don't have this one right now. So
Yeah.
this would
Yes, we
be,
do. We have it.
so we.
you may have something that you've created.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
You
it's
don't have
not
a
in here.
Neola
That's-
policy right now.
That's what we was talking about yesterday.
Yeah, I know it is. I know it is. And I'd already had it in there, and when you said it yesterday, it rang a bell in my head. I go, oops, I got something in there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave it.
What's the number on that again?
7,300.
Well, it's not in here, but it's in here. I mean, we want it
It's
from
a
FBO.
policy that we have, that when you adopted policy back when you adopted it, you didn't adopt this one.
Okay, could we?
You can adopt this policy now,
Okay.
or you can reject it.
All right, I want to have time to read that over.
Most definitely, I think you would.
Could we have that? I don't have it in this book. Is it in this
Easily
book?
printed. It can be easily be printed.
Okay.
Hit the little print button at the top, and if you got a printer here, it'll print
This
it.
being the first read,
Yeah, we can adopt it.
what would your suggestion be?
This is the first reading. I would wait on it to make sure that you had a chance to study it, and
Yeah.
you know exactly what boxes you want.
Okay.
Could you add that to the next?
And I was, I'll just,
Pam, you're gonna print that out and send it to, can you just send it to us now? Email?
First print.
The only way that I know that you could do it is, so you can print it,
And it's a
make it a,
PDF. PDF.
Then make it into a PDF and send it as a PDF.
Yep.
Could you do that? That would be the easy
Yeah,
way.
and I'm being fully transparent. I was just studying how different districts do this. I haven't written anything. I was just looking at this on my own.
And you can go to other districts
Yep.
and say, hey, what's their policy 7300 say?
So,
That might be something you want to do.
And
Yeah, we
since
talked
you
about this.
finance, that's something that you should
Yeah.
look at.
Trust me,
Because
when I've been drafting policy with other districts, they'll say, Wayne, what did you do with it? So they'll go back to my Lake Fenton policy, which I drafted when I was the superintendent there, and look and see what I did, what selections I adopted at that point. It's just something that you can look at and gives you
Great, and you can
a point.
compare to what we've been working from, because we're in that process already.
Yeah.
And maybe you got some better ideas.
yeah,
Okay.
we'll get together.
Now, that puts us to the end of the next update. But there were 4 or 5 additional policies that I didn't put over because they came out in the last update, which I figured I don't want to get them here and then try to do them a little different here. We'll wait till we get to that 37-2 to do. Going back again, how long does it take to do an update? What we've just did is 1 year's worth.
So we're done for the day?
That's the boss.
It's up to,
You've got about another 4 years to do yet.
Keep going, come.
it's up to the board if you got, because I got to go to the.
No, I'm not in a rush. I was asking in
I
general.
don't have nothing to do but go to the library and rename it, so,
I'll be there too.
and so it's up to the board if we feel
Board-
comfortable moving forward. We hadn't
Policy-
got burnt out.
Let's come on.
You
Wanna
can only
take a
do so
break?
much policy at a time.
Well, let's, I mean, I guess maybe take a break and then just do a little bit.
It's up to the board.
Yeah, I'm cool.
I'm for it. Okay.
So we have to 12, right?
What's that?
So can we take a 5-minute break?
You can do whatever you want. You guys are running this meeting. I'm just here to give you some
We'll
advice.
take a
That's up to
5-minute
the
break,
We wanna
because it
respect
seems
your
like
time, too.
everybody's.
Oh, don't worry about my
energized
time.
on
I'm
it.
retired.
Focus.
I have no time.
But do you need a break?
I'm with you guys.
You need some water?
You guys, I'm with you guys.
Okay, they're taking a break, so. That was pretty good. Oh, okay. This process is better than what I thought it was gonna be. I don't have to do no work.
You know,
I was concerned about how much work. I didn't want to be
and I
doing any
think
work.
that's the good part of this is
We ain't got to sit
they
here.
are doing the work,
Yes, and
and all we have to do is
this
say,
is so much better. I was like, how are we gonna do this? Okay.
and what did he say? We just got through,
1 years. I think he ain't sitting in this chair, that's all.
can you pause the online?
going to go to 35-1. 35-1, people, is a very short update. There was only 5 policies involved in it.
That's, yeah. Yeah. Tell 'em.
Oh, did I skip 34-2? Let's go to that one. You're right, I skipped one. A lot more policies in 34-2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Oh, so that's the end of the meeting.
11 policies there. I'm sorry,
I have not.
jumping ahead too fast. To go to policy 2210.
Test. Can you hear me?
2210.
Test. Oh, okay, there we go.
No, we did, but then we had one to go back to. 2210.
2210. It's curriculum development. The title of that update was changed to change from curriculum development to curriculum development approved courses. And the reason this was changed was because of the student accounting manual. Annually, you have to approve the courses that are taught in the high school. You're probably approving course guides and things of that nature. So you're approving courses that high school students take for credit in the high school. And so we added language to the bottom of that. Keep going down. How did you get it? You got a double screen all of a sudden. I don't know how you did that.
Approved courses, okay.
And we added language that, per the Michigan Student Accounting Manual, was required that the board shall adopt a list of individual courses that have been approved. The list shall include courses offered by the district for credit or graduation promotion and shall be used when determining which course may be included in membership for the state. I'm not going to read it all. That's basically what it says. And I'm sure everybody's doing that, because if you weren't, the auditors, when they come to audit your school accounting records, your student count, they're going to be asking for this. And if you didn't have it, you wouldn't be able to get credit for your students in the high school. It is now in your accounting manual. It was a law that was passed. Again, it was put in the student accounting manual. No optional language. Yep.
Yeah.
Policy 2412 is the next one. And it's entitled Homebound Instruction Program. It used to be that if you had a child that was going to be homebound and hospitalized, you had to have a note from a physician indicating that that child was homebound and hospitalized.
Right.
They added to that to say it could either be from a physician or a physician's assistant. And again, that took place back in 2020, and that was the only thing we had to add, the physician's assistant. Again, this requirement was put in there because it was a change that took place in the Michigan Student Accounting Manual.
Okay.
You'll see there's the reference.
Yeah.
2414. When they adopted, we reviewed this in the last update under 34.1, they had forgot to put assisting a student in obtaining an abortion. So now they went back and they added this to this policy. Again, it has to deal with reproduction and health, things that nobody can assist a student in obtaining an abortion of any type. If they do, they're in serious trouble. Policy 3362. It's a non-required policy. It's an optional policy. And we had to make some changes in this policy. There was a couple districts up north that were beginning to get some issues because of this policy. Because it basically said threatening behavior consisting of any words that deeds that intimidate a staff member, cause or causing concern for his or her physical and or psychological well-being is strictly forbidden. So if an individual was being disciplined for an issue, they were claiming that they were being psychologically injured. You know, so they did something wrong, and you know what? We're going to suspend you. You're going to get disciplined for this. And they were claiming that you can't do that because your policy doesn't allow for that. So we changed the words in it to say, threatening behavior consisting of any words or deeds that intimidate a staff member or reasonably cause concern for his or her physical and or psychological well-being is strictly forbidden. Then we put some examples down. Examples of such behavior include threats to cause bodily harm, stalking, bullying, threats to damage their real property, going to damage your car or something of that nature at the workplace, unusual behavior that reasonable person would consider threatening. It took out basically just because you're going to be disciplined for something that you did wrong, you didn't follow the rules, you hit a kid, and maybe, I'm just going to really make one up here, maybe you struck a kid or something, and now you're being disciplined for it. It had to be something reasonably. So therefore, we did this to basically make it so that a staff member couldn't use this policy against administration unless they said, I'm going to kick you, I'm going to beat you up, I'm going to damage your car, I'm going to do this, I'm going to physically harm you. So we put in all these examples of what it caused. Okay?
Okay.
Again, there's no optional language in this one.
Right.
And you have the old policy. Policy 4162, controlled substance and alcohol policy for commercial motor vehicle CMV drivers and other employees who perform safety-sensitive functions. I think your bus drivers are contracted, are they not?
Yep.
Don't you do first student?
Yeah, first.
Okay.
Yes.
You probably have some maintenance type people, though, that maybe work on vehicles of some. Do you have any maintenance whatsoever being done?
We do.
Okay, so it would include those people that maybe are doing work on pickup trucks for maintenance vehicles and things of that nature. So first of all, if you're hiring people to do any of this maintenance, one of the first things you have to do is that the superintendent shall require that the district query the FMCSA Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse to determine a prospective CDL driver who does driver's drug and alcohol violations before allowing the driver to operate a district-owned vehicle and operated vehicle consistent with federal regulations, including consent requirements. This is straight out of the law, okay? Right, this is straight out of the law. So if you're hiring anybody, you just have to check with the clearinghouse to make sure they haven't been convicted of any drug violation, any alcohol-related incident with driving and so forth. And at the time of the hiring of these people, there is some information that you are supposed to give them. And it has to deal within the, forget what it's called right now, the federal guideline for drivers. There is some literature that they're supposed to be given so that they understand what it is. Okay? All the information that was added to this policy was added because of federal law. And again, remember, it is against the law. I don't care if they have a doctor's note that they are on marijuana for physical help, that it's against the law to be on school property with it. Because schools are governed by the federal regulation for marijuana. People could say, hey, Michigan allows you to wear marijuana, have marijuana. Well, federal law doesn't. We're getting federal funds, and so therefore we have to abide by the federal law. Nope, marijuana card not while they can't be under the influence of marijuana or have marijuana. The next one is policy 5200. 5200 here. Yeah, it is. Here's where we have to make we have to add a couple things. So you're going to have to check the pencil up there to get us in edit mode. And we're already got the track changes are on. Kevlin?
Yes.
A student may be considered a full-time equivalent student provided the student is enrolled in. How many classes do high school students have to participate in?
30.
How many a day?
Oh, a day, 6.
6. So you're going to type the word 6 and put 6 units. Put the number 6 in the bracket. Do you have an alternative ed program? So you're going to check the alternative ed program. A student enrolled in the district's alternative ed program may be considered a full-time student, provided the student is enrolled in. How many classes must they be in?
It's the same.
Same thing. So you're going to put 6 there and 6 in the box. This policy also, remember the governor and legislature changed the out limit from 16 years of age to 18 years of age, so it updates that policy here. I believe that's all there is. Again, reference, student accounting manual. Hit save. You're not going to have this next policy in your book. 5335, because what does it say at the top? It says it's a new policy. Care for students with chronic health conditions. So here's where we're going to basically draft this policy if you want this policy in your folder or in your book. So chronic health conditions, for the purpose of this, if you want this policy, you're going to go through and you're going to check what you consider to be chronic health conditions for students. You can check them all. If you want to add some, you can add. Say again? I don't know what to tell you on that one. I know I put, geez, what? Oh, Jiminy, I got to try to think of the name of it. Where a student has a seizure. Epilepsy. I put epilepsy as one of them. Say again? You could. If you want to add some of those, you can. You know, that's what those lines are at the bottom, if you want to add. So I guess they're going to want to do this, so you're going to put there. Let's see if let me look and see if it didn't catch yet. I don't know why. There it did. Well, let's look and see if you've got to turn the track changes on.
Are these A, B, C, and D are what other districts have, or why
Those are your choices that you want, if you want them.
why those choices and not like autism, spectrum disorder?
Because those are health conditions. Autism really isn't a health condition. It's probably hereditary. It's probably more of a, these are types of allergies, is something where you're going to take something for, is the only thing I can think of to answer your question there. So here's where you have to do something special when you have these asthma and so forth. You can add whatever you want in E and F. If you want to add more, you could add more. You could do a G and H if you wanted to. You certainly.
I have a concern, few students was affected, very bad with the COVID. And they do have, and I guess with probably some of this serious respiratory issues at any time. For instance, if they go into a building or room, there's dust and mold, and it triggers. Is that considered,
Not a doctor, so I don't know.
but put that, we put that under that, would it just, how would that person, would it make sense? Do we have a policy?
But wouldn't they would come with some type of doctor's note if it's diagnosed, if they're taking some type of asthma medicine, or
Respiratory.
they should be able to have something from a doctor. And then we normally follow doctor's notes.
Okay, I got you.
Okay.
Is there a way to maybe add just like 2 and then change that shall to like shall include but not limited to be
Yes.
out more
Yep,
encompassing?
you certainly can.
Yeah.
Shall include but not limited to. So you want, after the word include, you want and not limited to. Yes.
What's your reasoning behind it?
I don't got a problem with that now.
Do you know when they have HIV, though? With a peanut allergy, a kid's going to identify to you that they got a peanut allergy because they have to have a peanut-free classroom. If they've got allergies, they're going to probably say, I'm going to need an EpiPen or bee sting or something of that nature.
Because that way it would be a more protected classification, so that, I mean, there are students who who've been born with it, and it has been traditionally discriminated against, and there's been like, I just think it's the right thing to do.
What about the other diseases what about those ones as well? I mean, if you want to add one of them, you should add all of them then.
Question is, how many of them do you add? That, by doing the not limited to piece, you've added a big piece right there. You've opened it up to a lot of other things, which is a good piece to add, in my
I
opinion.
think what you're saying, Trustee McIntyre, is you want to include HIV here to be more explicit, to stigmatize it, but the limited piece and what be all encompassing for other things that may also be important to this.
Yeah, because I think it's the right thing to do in an urban district. And that's why, and he's saying what on what grounds. Because we've got a wellness community that does advocate for Narcan, HIV,
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not,
destigmatize things like
Well, later on, the lead effects could be like the other symptom. Okay.
I think it makes sense that.
Okay.
there's other things as well, but I would specifically advocate that because it is a like civil rights issue.
Okay? Any others? Okay, then for the F, you would put a line through it, highlight it, hit delete. Yep. All information regarding student identification shall be a personal identifiable information. District will coordinate practice.
Madam Chair, can I be asked to excuse? I have a 12:30 before the 2 o'clock for Gloria goes at the 12:03.
Are you finished with this one?
How many do you have left?
You got several boxes, we gotta check, make a choice. You can always stop in the middle of
I
the
can
thing.
I can wait till you finish this in the.
I can stick around. I stick around if others.
The district will coordinate. You can always come back to this one at a later date, too.
Could we send out another doodle poll?
Say again?
Could we send another doodle poll when you come back?
Oh,
What we're gonna do, since we're wrapping it up,
I
we
wanna
need a
make-
date, do this Saturday working, so we can, schedule a date.
You can schedule whatever you want with me.
he says he's retired, so he's flexible.
I'm retired. Every day's a Saturday. Every day's a Saturday.
Not for me.
I can't wait to experience that.
What's that?
I can't wait to
Every day is-
experience
no,
that.
I didn't say it didn't work. He said every day is a Saturday for him. No,
I understand that. So Pam sent out a doodle, I think we should keep them close together, so we don't lose no weight, so put a big gap between our session. Maybe we can do one, looking at your schedule, do one next week and next Saturday, so we don't.
You're probably going to have, as I remember when we tried to schedule this, you know, we did have the 10th, but the 10th was out. I think the following one even, the following one after that, I'm gone on the 17th. I thought the 24th was out. I think didn't somebody have some issues on the 24th?
I can't do
That's a unity
the
march.
next couple of Saturdays.
And
I have some
so probably you're getting into July.
Do we have to be a Saturday if anybody can schedule?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
You tell me a date.
You don't have to, your choice.
Next Thursday? Next Thursday.
Let me think, let me get to my calendar
Gotta
here.
have an HR subcommittee.
Oh, wait, yeah, wait, okay.
Next Thursday.
Yeah, or, yeah. Okay, so, how about June 15th?
No, that is the.
June
effective-
15th would be very tough for me,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
because I'm getting ready to,
It should be tough for most of us, because that's the Effective Educators Awards,
I thought that June 15th is ribbon cutting, right?
June
And that's a-
15th.
And there's Juneteenth stuff
What
happening
effective educators?
from the 9th, June 9th, all the way through July 1st.
Y'all don't have that?
I don't have that on my calendar. So who's gonna tell me about that? So July 1st. That's a Saturday.
is that the 4th of July weekend? Is my only concern there.
So there's
You do a Monday or something? I mean,
I'm,
During the week,
yeah, during the week.
we got Tuesday the 13th, or Tuesday on the 20th, June the 13th, June the 20th, that's on a Tuesday. They did Thursday on the 22nd, what about that?
that's gonna be a problem for me.
What days you
I'm
free?
just getting back from California.
What days you?
That Friday on the 23rd, it's up to you guys.
23rd, I'm out, I got an obligation that day.
So we in a 26 week?
24th, I'm open, but I think Shu had an issue with.
Mr. Jones did.
Did Mr. Jones have an obligation? Somebody on the 24th, I thought had an obligation. I don't, I'm okay on the 24th.
You can do it, I just,
26? You need to be here.
You tell me you just throw dates at me and keep throwing dates at me.
26.
26th will be a tough one. 26th and 27th, I'm out.
All right, so
26.
28?
28th, I'm open. Well,
He's,
I got different things that I do put on my plan.
28, I'm good with that.
28.
so 26.
28th, I'm good.
I can do 28th, and I
28.
can make myself free. in the
Boom.
evening.
It's good.
Jones? Jones is good. 28th, all right. What time we doing?
What time are you thinking on that?
We have a lunch, breakfast, dinner? What we have?
Yeah.
Give me a time.
5:30 to 8:30.
You ain't gonna be obviously.
That's a Thursday, I think.
That's a Wednesday.
Is it a
Do we
Wednesday?
have to do 3 hours? Can we do 2 hours?
Yeah,
I guess it won't matter.
So what is 5 o'clock to 5:30? 5:30?
All right, 5:30.
5:30 and the 28th.
8:30, 5:30 to 8:30.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a block.
That's good with you, Mr. Ray?
That's
Yeah.
good. 28th will work for me.
You go bring you some
Dinner,
coffee?
please.
Say again?
Bring you some coffee? Oh. Okay. So we got, okay, Neola.
You can find another,
Cake.
trustee, can you find another?
Cake.
We don't get it over with too.
Oh, yeah, let's try, oh, can we do another, we doing the continuation? All right, let's keep going. So,
So did you put the 28th down?
I put the 28 down.
28th at 5:30?
Yeah, what about the next one? You,
Yep, okay, we can. What location?
be here.
Everything will be here, okay.
You said the 10th?
The 12th. Wait a minute.
That's our board meeting, right?
It's not on.
Second and third, right?
You sure? Because it's not on here.
Oh, okay.
If we,
If we, oh, yeah.
we have to adopt the budget in June, right?
You have to adopt the budget in June, correct?
So I probably can sub the July FINAP for this.
What day is that?
That's the,
Yeah, so it would be July 10th because of the 4th of July weekend.
I make it available.
I'm available.
10th, is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
What time you looking for? We got another one? I'm just saying. You said we got,
So can we kind of stop there? Because I know that there's some other 7+1 training. I got to prepare for the school year. If we can get those 2 dates and maybe in our next meeting, we can come back and do
What's the Monday?
another date out.
Yeah.
That would be good.
It will help us because we're not totally prepared for the year, so.
Nope, I understand.
So we got 7:10 and 6:28.
there we go. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
6:20, yep.
So,
5:30.
yeah, so now this meeting,
Where we stop at?
what time we stop at, County, you know? 24, what, 12?
Thank you so much, Mr. Wright.
You're welcome. Been great working with you guys. I was a little apprehensive. I'm going to be truthful with you.
That's
But after being with you guys, I'm not apprehensive at all. You guys are great.
Policy is not sexy or
You guys are great.
Okay, board, thank you, Mr. Wright.
Yeah, what, yeah.
Board has picked dates for the next policy workshop.
Oh, cool.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. This has been a very, very enlightening experience. The board has selected their dates for our next workshop, 6/28 at 5:30 and July the 10th at 5:30. Seeing no further business, I declare the board workshop section adjourned. The time is
12:12.
12:12. Oh, we don't perfect. And we'll see you guys at the library. Oh, okay.